Well, hi guys, it's that time. It's our Monday story. I want to tell you about my trip into town last week. I believe it was Thursday is when I went. When I say my trip into town, I live about 50 minutes away from the nearest larger city. And I usually go maybe once every couple of weeks. I'll go to Sam's Club and or Costco because I pick up a lot of fresh vegetables and fruits and different vegan type foods. And I generally go to Costco because they carry such a huge variety of plant based foods and a better variety, should I say, also of organic fruits and vegetables than necessarily that Sam's Club does right now. Hopefully, they'll start carrying more at Sam's Club. So, anyway, I go to town to do that, and I went into a parking lot and I parked. And as I was getting ready to park, I noticed this car sitting there, and the door was open on it, just, not all the way open like someone was getting out, but it was propped open maybe a couple of feet wide. And as I walked by, I noticed someone sitting in the car. It was a young man, I'm guessing between the age of, say, 25 years old to maybe 27, 28. He was under 30 years old, no doubt. But I went into the store. This was not at Costco, by the way. I had another errand to do. But when I came back out of that store, it's just a real quick in and out. He's still sitting there, right? And as I walked past him, he kind of looked a little bit like up, but didn't make eye contact with me very well at all. He just noticed that someone was walking by. And as I got up closer to the car, I spoke to him and I said, "Well, hey, how are you doing today?" And he looked up and he said, "Oh, I guess I'm doing okay." And I said, "Well, you know what? If you're going to be sitting out here in a car, you picked a pretty good day because it's not quite as humid today as it has been the last couple of days." And he said, "Yes, it is hot," because he had his shirt off, right? And he said, "Well, it is a little bit hot, but it's not too bad." And I said, "Well, I tell you what, I've got some water in my car. I can sure give you a bottle of water. Or would you like a bottle of water?" And he said, "No, ma'am, I'm okay." And I said, "Are you sure? Because I got plenty of water, and I don't want you to get too hot sitting here." And he said, "Well, okay, I guess I could take a bottle of water." And I walked over to my car, which was just a parking space over from that vehicle, and got him a bottle of water and handed it to him. And I said, "Here you go." And look, guys, when I gave him that, he kind of teared up. And he said, "You really do care about me, don't you?" And I said, "Well, of course I care about you. I wouldn't want anything to happen to you sitting here and getting too hot or anything." And he said, "No, I didn't mean the water. I meant that you would actually stop and speak to me." And it struck me that he's in a piece of junk of a car. I mean, the vehicle is what some people would call a hoopty, if you want to. And he's got tattoos and some piercings and stuff like that on him, right? And I said, "Well, actually, yes, I do care about you, and I love you." And so he just started crying. And he told me, he says, "I just can't really I didn't even know how to respond to you when you were so nice to me." And I said, "Well, I really do care about you." And he said, "I know, and I just thank you that there are people like you in the world that do care about other people." And I said, "Are you sure you're actually really okay?" And he kind of teared up again. And I squatted down, and now I'm kind of eye to eye with him, and actually he's peering over me just a little bit because he's sitting in the car, and I'm kind of squatted down on the pavement, right? And I just barely, now look, I didn't put my hands all over him or anything. I just barely touched his knee because he had his, so I put my hand on the end of his knee right there. And I said, "Did you want to talk to me? Do you need somebody to talk to?" And he said, "Yes, I really do need somebody to talk to." So this young man goes into telling me that his roommate, he'd been to work and whatever, and he'd been at home, and when he went to bed, he just went to bed because he had to go to work the next day. Well, the guy he lives with comes home in the night sometime or another, and I don't know if he was drunk or on drugs or if he was fighting with somebody else or if it was a combination of different things, but the roommate comes in there and wakes this guy up and starts beating him, like beating the crap out of him, and he ended up calling the police when this guy when he got away from him that next morning, he called the police and told the police what his roommate had done to him. And so the police went and arrested him and took the man in custody. So this young 24, 25-year-old fella, he was scared to go to work because the roommate knew where he worked, so he quit his $12 an hour job because the guy knows where to find him, and he's scared of him. He thought he was going to absolutely kill him that night. So he didn't show up for his work. He did call him and tell him that he was sorry he had to quit without notice, but he needed to kind of disappear. Okay, so then he didn't know anyone to get to help him get away. He couldn't get his car to start, and so he left it sitting there, and he called somebody that he'd worked with at a different job, and fortunately this guy answered. So this man and his wife comes and gets him, and he's actually in the hoopty, if you want to call it, that car that looks really rough and it's full of junk. That was the couple's car, and they had gone into a store to pawn some stuff off or to sell some things so that they could get some money. But anyway, so he tells me this horrible story, and he's like, I'm homeless. I didn't even get any of my clothes. I don't have hardly any. I ain't got any money because it's payday tomorrow, but I'm broke. I don't have a car. I don't have any of my clothes, and I don't really even know this couple that well. I just had this guy's phone number. So he's telling me all these things, and I told him, I said, well, and then he starts telling me that his mother, who lives about an hour or so out of town in a nearby city out of Memphis, that he could go to her house to live and stay, but she would not be home for 3 days. He said, and I have no idea what I'm going to do for 3 more days. And so I told him, and I could tell he was just really so stressed out. And so I asked him, I said, well, I want to ask you a question. And he said, okay. I said, and I know with the virus going around and people scared of each other, but I want to ask you, is it okay if I hug you, if I just give you a hug, and if you say no, I'm not going to be upset with you, but you really need somebody to hug you, I think. And he started crying again. He says, I would love it if somebody would just hug me. He said, and I know you care about me, but please, yes, would you please? And I just wrapped this young boy in my arms and held him, and I told him, I said, it's going to be okay. I know that today's a really hard day for you, but I promise you, everything's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I let him go, and of course he's sitting there. He's like, I'm just still, I don't even know how someone like you would be so kind to me, and which kind of hurts my feelings because he sees himself far below being worthy of another human being to love him because he knows he's living a little bit rougher lifestyle than a lot of people. He's got tattoos and piercings, and he's smoking while he has a pack of cigarettes laying there. So I know he smokes, and I'm sure he parties or whatever. But you know what? Jesus did not tell me to evaluate a person and decide if they're worthy of me loving them or not, guys. He didn't assign that to me. Now, he might have assigned some Christians in certain churches to judge everybody and mistreat people and only those who are worthy, but I'm not of that group, okay? I just believe that when I see a person and Holy Spirit, God's Spirit starts telling me that person is hurting or needs some kindness or something, I'm just going to go ahead and just move with the Spirit. You know, there's a scripture that says, those who are led by the Spirit are God's mature sons, okay? Being led doesn't mean a choke harness on your neck dragging you places, okay? Those who are led by the Spirit, that word led means those who move along with, in unison with, these are the mature sons and daughters of God. And see, when I can walk around and see people who are hurting and need love, need anything, for someone to be kind to hug them, to pray for them, that's called walking with God, being led by His Spirit, so that we are mature enough to see other people's needs instead of, oh, well, they're black, they're not white, or they're not my color, or they're not my gender, or they're not as good as me. They don't make as much money as me. They're not worthy. See, we got to stop all of that, okay? We are called to love all people. Love all people. Okay, so let me wrap this up. I want to finish telling you this. So I get up and I told him, I said, so the couple comes back out and I said, would you come over here with me? I want to give you 2 or 3 more bottles of water. And I said, and as we walked toward my car, I said, I want to give you $20. And so you'll have a little money for something to eat in case you need it. And he said, no, I don't want any money, please. I don't want you to feel like that you need to give me anything. I said, I don't have to give you anything. I just want to help you a little bit. I won't ever even miss that money. So I gave him the 20. I slipped it to him because I didn't want the other couple to know we had it because they would want it for gas money maybe. So I slipped him the money, and I gave him some more water. And then he asked me, he said, what do you do for a living? You're just so different. Who are you? And he asked me all these questions, right? And I gave him my name. I told him, I said, well, I'm actually kind of in ministry, but he said, really? I used to go to church. I said, well, now I don't want this to turn into some religious something because I didn't stop and talk to you as some religious thing, okay? And I don't even like it when people call me a Christian because that sometimes turns people against who I am and what I believe, because I'm not judging you, baby. I'm not judging you. I didn't stop to judge you. I stopped to tell you that I love you and that I care about you. And he's just like, oh, well, you're so kind, and I knew that you were such a sweet person, and no, I would have never guessed that you were a Christian because you have been so sweet. See, that's a kind of something that we need to work on where people don't see us and go, oh, that's a Christian. I don't want anything to do with them. That can be a roadblock for us being the light of the world and the salt of the world, right? So anyway, before I got through talking to him, I did ask him if I could give him another hug. I ended up hugging him like 2 more times, and I told him that I loved him, and he gave me his phone number and his name, and I gave him my name and phone number, and I told him, I said, now look, baby, if you can't find a way to your mother's house, you call me and I will come and get you, and I'll make sure you get where you need to be so you can get to your mom's house, okay? But he did not call me, so I know he's okay. He did make it to his mother's house, no doubt. But before I let him go, I told him, I said, now look, I want to make sure that you understand this. The person you're living with, you saw something in that person that when they get out of control like that, they will hurt you and that your life is in danger. Whatever you do, if you don't hear another thing I have to say to you today, hear this. You have to distance yourself and disconnect yourself from anyone who is emotionally and physically abusive, because the next time that person could go too far and hurt you, put you in the hospital, or even worse, kill you. Now, there was something in you that was so scared that you called the police, and that's a good thing. That something in you is a sure enough voice telling you to distance yourself and don't ever be around that person again. Don't you ever go back to that apartment. Don't have anything to do with him. Don't let him know where you're living or anything like that. You must stay away from someone who you think has the capability of killing you. Now, I'm an older lady. I'm old enough to be your mother, and I'm telling you that you need to never, ever, ever, not just this one person, but any person that wants to physically or emotionally abuse you, you must disconnect yourself with that person for your own safety, your own emotional safety and your physical safety. But anyway, listen, I'll call it a wrap-up. I didn't put in every single thing because I was with that young man for probably 30 minutes. But he's doing okay as far as I know. I haven't heard from that beautiful young man, but I can tell you this. I'll throw this in before I let you go today. Did you know if he was my son, I would want somebody like Faye Styles to see him and love him because I wasn't there to hold him and hug him and tell him that I love him. I would want someone else to hug my son, tell him that he's going to be okay, give him their phone number, and love him in my absence. If I was a mother of a child, I would want someone to show that type of love toward my child, okay? Listen, I'm going to sign off. I'll see you here tomorrow, okay? Bye-bye. I love you. Bye-bye.